This is our presentation on human nature. It was done by Danica, Hampton, Peter, and Kylie Ann Montana. Part 1, we have human nature in Genesis 1-3. Our first question is what is revealed about human nature from Genesis 1-2. The first thing that we learn is that humans were made in the image of God. Unlike any animals, humans are able to reflect the spiritual, moral, and intellectual nature of God. This just means that our brains are more advanced than any other creature that God had created, and we are able to fulfill His purpose that He set out for us. However, this does not overlook the possibility of humans being flawed. We do know that humans sin, and Adam and Eve were the first to do that. And just because that we are made in the image of God does not mean that we are God. The second thing that we learned is that we weren't meant to be alone. In Genesis 2:18, the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." This established a partnership of Adam and Eve and a bond based upon mutual respect and care. The third thing that we learn is that humans have dignity and value. In the textbook, we cite that we live in a right relationship as God intended. God intended a purpose for us. God intended us to have value and to live out life as He intended. Our second question is what are the consequences of the fall for human nature from Genesis 3? Here we have a chart establishing the immediate and long-lasting effects of the fall. On the immediate side, we first start off with a verse that says, "And then the eyes of both of them were opened." This occurred strictly after Adam and Eve took a bite of the apple, where they realized the difference between good and evil. They both realized they were naked, and for the first time, humans felt shame. Adam placed blame on Eve when questioned by God for convincing her to eat the apple, and Eve placed blame on the serpent for deceiving her. The ultimate result was that they were both cast out of the garden, never to return. On the long-lasting side, God placed a curse on livestock in which animals would be unable to deceive humans ever again, establishing a break in their relationship. Obviously, the serpent was able to communicate with the humans, which is unheard of today, which could be a possible explanation for that break in relationship. The second thing we have is the pain of childbirth. Eve was to be the mother of all that is living, but it would come at a cost. The third thing that we have is that man must endure painful toil to survive. This means that the resources would not be provided as they were in the garden. Man would have to work to eat. The fourth thing that we have is ultimate death. When God warned Adam about eating the forbidden fruit, He told him that he would surely die. And even though this was not immediate, Adam and Eve would eventually return to the ground. The fifth thing that we have is the broken relationship between mankind and God. Mankind and God were harmonious. They were in a loving and relationship of mutual respect prior to the first sin. However, now there is an establishment of deceit and lying in that relationship. And the last thing that we have is conflict between man and woman. In Genesis 3:16, it says, "Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." This was not a command placing man over woman. It just established a power struggle between the sexes in which both man and woman would desire to have control over the other and exploit them for their own selfish desires. Thus, their once mutual relationship would become a power struggle.
So I did what is revealed about human purpose. What does it mean for humans to flourish? In other words, to achieve spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being. So our physical bodies are complex, and God declares them to be good. During our creation, God also gave us living souls that are complex like God. The earth provided for our every need. And then quoted from the article is, "Man was not created automaton, but as a free being with the moral ability to love God or reject God as he should choose." Morris, 1994. We have to have a special and personal relationship with God to flourish and achieve spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being.
Okay. So atheism views humans as basically good, born good, born innocent and with good intentions, and then society corrupts them as they get older, and their parents corrupt them because their parents were corrupted, and etc. And it's a whole vicious cycle. And they believe that if we were to just kill that cycle, we would have a perfect world. the human purpose is to be happy, to just make yourself happy doing whatever you think that is, which differs from Christianity, because Christianity is doing everything for God's glory. And then flourishing is also based on purpose, which is basically you're flourishing if you're fulfilling your purpose, which is being happy. And so you determine that, not it's not an objective concept relating to how close to God you are. And God never created suffering. It entered the world when Adam and Eve sinned at the fall by eating the forbidden fruit, which God told them not to do. Because of this, all the bad things like death, murder, and everything else bad that happens in the world is a result of Adam's original sin. It was only possible because God gave us free will. But it is part of God's plan, which we're incapable of understanding, which Habakkuk talks about in chapter 3.
Mental health. Mental health is something that affects people's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how people act, feel, and think. Below are some of the factors that can affect mental health. Biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences such as trauma or abuse, family history or mental health problems, and that is from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Highlight how the consequences of the fall is evident in the world today. The consequences of the fall in the world today are loss of righteousness, separation from God, cursed environment, physical death, and clothing. The consequence of the fall is evident in mental health issues because we know that one of the consequences of the fall is the corruption of God's good and perfect creation of our bodies, 2 Corinthians 4:16, 1 Corinthians 15:42, Psalm 73:26, Isaiah 40:30, and our earthly lives are limited and eventually our bodies will fail us. This also applies to our minds, and throughout Scripture we see biblical features such as David's in Psalm 38:4, Job 3:26, and Elijah 1 King 19 verse 4, Jonah 4:3, dealing with deep feelings of despair, anger, depression, and loneliness. And lastly, describe how this issue creates dehumanization and diminishes human dignity. The definition of dehumanization is the process of depriving a person or group from positive human qualities. And according to Boysen, Isaacs, Tretter, Markowski, in 2019, people who struggle with mental health issues face stigma, and due to their low social status, they may also face blatant dehumanization that denies their status as fully evolved human beings. This simultaneously diminishes their self-worth and dignity. And lastly, describe how this issue creates dehumanization and diminishes human dignity. The definition of dehumanization is the process of depriving a person or group from positive human qualities. And according to Boysen, Isaacs, Tretter, Markowski, in 2019, people who struggle with mental health issues face stigma, and due to their low social status, they may also face blatant dehumanization that denies their status as fully evolved human beings. This simultaneously diminishes their self-worth and dignity.
Grace Alliance is a Christian non-profit mental health recovery and supportive organization. It is founded in 2011 by Zoe Padilla, which initially to help his wife and family dealing with mental health problems. The organization integrates science and faith to restore the mental health and emotional health. It also provides a lot of helpful resources like workbook, training, courses, and support group to help people deal with mental health issue. The organization reflects a Christian worldview through their statement and their goals, which the goal of the organization is to reinvent the life of people who are struggling with mental health by believing in the power of, of grace. And the organization cultivate healthy solution for the heart and the mind by simple innovative biblical truths and scientific research and practical tools. There are three main services that the organization provide to stop dehumanization. The first is workbook, which is called Living Grace and Redefine Grace. It's a combination of biblical stories, neuroscience, and practical tools which help to manage stress, negative thoughts, and promote joy. The second is support group grace groups, which to improve the mental and emotional wellness within a community, and also provided training course for pastors and church leaders who mental health 101, which help them to appropriately respond with people who are struggling with mental health issue to create connection. The organization reflects a Christian worldview through their statement and their goals, which the goal of the organization is to reinvent the life of people who are struggling with mental health by believing in the power of, of grace. And the organization cultivate healthy solution for the heart and the mind by simple innovative biblical truths and scientific research and practical tools. There are three main services that the organization provide to stop dehumanization. The first is workbook, which is called Living Grace and Redefine Grace. It's a combination of biblical stories, neuroscience, and practical tools which help to manage stress, negative thoughts, and promote joy. The second is support group grace groups, which to improve the mental and emotional wellness within a community, and also provided training course for pastors and church leaders who mental health 101, which help them to appropriately respond with people who are struggling with mental health issue to create connection.
Describe how the chosen Christian organization works to address dehumanization and restore human dignity. So the organization we chose, Grace Alliance, is an organization that was founded to provide an outlet for those struggling with mental health, and everything that this organization does is to uplift the followers and restore human dignity to those that participate in the program. They do this through training pastors, speakers, and leaders to go out in the field and apply what they've learned to minister to people who are suffering from mental health issues. They've also created a number of brochures, worksheets, and curriculum that have been developed to aid those that are struggling. And they also have specific classes for certain disorders such as PTSD, depression, anxiety, etc. So the next prompt was discuss how God-centered worldview as discussed in the mystery of original sin might provide a solution. So a God-centered worldview is one that firmly believes in a creator God who made the universe, made the earth, made all humans, and gave his creation the ability to choose salvation through believing that God sent his son to the earth to die for us. So believing this worldview, those who are ministered to by Grace Alliance can realize that there is hope, though it is not of this world, because the world is full of sin and evil. As a person using Grace Alliance's services, looking at what the earth and society has to offer is pointless, because nothing that humankind and mankind has to offer will provide ultimate understanding or peace. And lastly, this is how Grace Organization uses a God-centered worldview to provide solutions. So Grace Alliance was founded originally because their CEO, Joe Padilla, wanted to help his wife who was suffering with mental illness, but the normal support groups were not centered on faith, which is what he was looking for. So he wanted to give people the opportunity to have an organization that valued theology, the Bible, and the church, while at the same time using the same resources that people in the mental health field use. In Grace Alliance's meetings, fellowship, and discipleship with other followers is at the forefront. And understanding God as the creator of everything, as well as honoring and worshiping God, is the most important aspect and the first thing that Grace Alliance has to do. Thank you for watching.